want to talk to you guys today about UFOs. There's some common misconceptions out there about what's going on in each process, and it's time we break those things down. Because I heard some really stupid things this weekend, and it's really getting on my nerves. So let's take a look. Let's do it the first thing on here. This is typically how you see a UFO craft, right? That's not hard. What are these? Those are resonators, okay? They create resonance, right? That's what you're looking for. Why? What is going on here in this process that you would need something like this? Well, let's go with the fundamental force in nature we know is absolutely true. When you create the correct combination of frequencies in a bridge, what happens? It resonates. When it starts to resonate, what does it do? In nature, it loses its ability to stay in gravity. That's why you would need resonators. You want to create the same process. You want to disrupt gravity itself. Therefore, you must disrupt based on the resonance frequency of those resonators. That's why they're there. They're not propulsion, they're not some kind of glow stick, they're not some kind of ion wind. When we're dealing with ion wind, I would think it's so incompetent that we think in any way that that's what we're talking about in a UFO craft. You're going to get 2.4 meters per second out of ion wind in a traditional thruster. You can see it on the plasma channel, it's not that hard. Can you multiply that amount? Yes, you can. But you're also going to multiply the weight that you put into it. You're never going to exceed the weight in that craft with ion wind. You're dealing with ionization of the air. That's the process going on there, not ion wind. You need to ionize the air. You need to get it ready to break with everything else in there. We see this in a thunderstorm generator. They must ionize it in order to break the molecule chain. It's the same thing in a UFO craft. We need resonators on the bottom in order to take out the resonance right here to break it with Earth. How do we know this is going on? Here's our Earth. We have our magnetic field here. We have our voltage field here, right? What do we have in here? These are layers of gas. As you understand, there's layers of gas. It's also going to change as you put in light. It's going to reflect in different directions, right? Based on the wavelength that you put into it. That's not hard. That's how we know that there's layers of gas. What does that also mean? That you must have some form of compression. You must now have compression in this field. You basically built a vacuum chamber and you have gases that build up in different layers based on the viscosity of the gas themselves. Now you have compression inside this field. How do you break compression? This is so simple. This goes back down to a modern understanding of something. I'm not even going to draw it. Watch. Put my hand right here, right? I'm going to take my other hand and I'm just going to compress it, right? Now, how do I get my hand out of there? Well, I must create a movement to move it out, right? I need to move it out of the compressed field. Now, can I get it out a lot easier than just force? Well, yes, you can. If I have my hand here and hand here, and I start to move my hand, now my compression is less, and my hand comes out easier. What is resonance? It's the amplified portion of vibration. Now I'm here, and like the Flash does, I need to move my hand so fast that this has no chance of holding it. And it just comes out. Now, that's not so hard to understand. We're in a compression zone. I must now resonate something to break the compression that's going on. When I break that compression, now everything is vulnerable because the gravity lock is gone. That's why resonance in a craft is so important. It is literally a lock. You must figure out the combination on that lock in order to release it. Now, we understand that. We can move our hand, we get rid of the compression. Okay? That's what the resonators are for. As I have this craft, I need the resonance value right here to break my radiant field that's in my craft, right? It's going to break it free. Now, I'm in the waveforms here, which we saw in the Northern Lights, right? Now, I can choose my vector direction simply based on my frequency. When you release the compression, it's buoyancy. You're now outside of the compression of the Earth. You're now in buoyancy. You can now move based on the area that you put it in. This is real simple. That's why you have those on the bottom of the craft. They realized a long time ago resonance breaks the gravity because it's a compression field. Now, why in the world would I use ionization versus ion wind? Well, ion wind is very weak. It really is. I mean, you could take a PC fan and set up an ion thruster and get about the same amount. 2.4 meters per second. It's weak. But ionization is different. You're preparing the molecules to separate. What does that mean in the same thing we just did? Well, we dealt with compression. Now we need to break the air molecules apart in order to move freely through them. Because every time you take a molecule and a molecule chain, you're adding density to it. Well, what do we want to do? We want to break that apart and remove the density from it, or viscosity in this case. You got to think about it in viscosity, right? We have water down here on the bottom of your planet, right? We have the ocean, but then we have gases up here. The viscosity difference is a lot based on the molecule chain that it's created. Now, as I change this from my water, now I have hydrogen separate from my oxygen, right? I have broken apart the chain of molecules right here in order to get a difference in the viscosity of it. Now I can start to understand this. This is how they build out and build apart. In resonance, you need ionization to prep this to separate back to this. When it completely goes back to a solid, it comes back to this. One of the things you always hear about a UFO craft is the color. Blue, greens. I like to say it's aquamarine. Why? Because you're breaking apart and putting together water molecules themselves. That's what you're doing. You're creating compression in a field in order to take those things and just flip-flop them, okay? And it continuously does it right around your craft. Compression, ionization inside your craft. You must have ionization to prep everything. That's basic Hutchinson in itself, by the way. He's doing the same thing. He's creating ionization in his room, and yes, his room is the outside of the field, and now he has the ionization. He's taken the viscosity of the air itself and breaking it down into hydrogen and oxygen in that locality. That's what makes it the ability to have anti-gravity. And he's using resonance in the area to break it as well. Those are the two things that go on in a UFO craft. Now, if you can't understand that, it's going to be really hard to build a UFO craft. Let me just tell you that right now. You have to understand the forces that are going on. So what's gravity at this point? We have our magnetic, we have our voltage, we have our gas build out, we have our water, we have our solid mass, So what's the solid mass? It's just more molecules in the chain to create the solid mass. So if I want to create some kind of sludge out of my exhaust using the thunderstorm generator, what am I going to do? I'm basically going to take the gas that's coming into it that has carbon into it, I'm going to break it apart, and then I'm going to put it back together where it's sludge, because I am taking a gas form, changing the viscosity of it, and now I'm getting into mass. Do you get it? That we're literally just changing the chain that's going on there. We're adding more things to it. We're adding density to it. Therefore, it makes a molecule change into one form to the next. You're going from gas, then you're going to viscosity in a liquid, and then you're going to a solid form. All you're doing is changing those. So what happens when you create a vortex? In order to do this, well, it's creating an ionization. So you got an ionization right here. Now you're breaking them apart. You're taking your molecule chain here, which I don't even know how to draw it like this. Okay? And now I'm going to break it. Put it in 3 separate components in here. That's what this does. The pressure, the rotation value, everything is changing this and this to this because there's resonance inside this tornado right here. It's breaking them apart. As it comes out of the other side here, now I am reforming it. But this time, I picked up an extra one here, so now my molecule chain is different. Now I can create a solid out of a gas. That's pretty easy. We see it in chemistry all the time. Pretty simple to get to, right? That right there is all through the Russell scale. He's telling you that consistently throughout it and how to convert things. Let's get back to this. We're dealing in compression here, and it's always down. No matter how much this rotates right here, and this counter rotates, this right here, this compression is always here. And the counter rotation is in here, by the way. Not here, I shouldn't have drawn it there, sorry. We're looking at this compression here. I now need to resonate it to create a difference in compression right here so I can get a certain value out of this. I need it to be ionized, okay, in my compression. Now, I have the ability to break apart the molecule chains around it. And now I can put it in where I need to work in. Now I can put it in my anti-gravity field. You'll never be able to use ion wind. Not in this. You must ionize the air itself in order to break the molecule chain. Then you take electricity to further break that chain. You need the electricity, but you need the compression in some kind of a craft. In the thunderstorm generator, you have something that looks like this. There's very specific distances here. Why? Because there's a resonance value associated with it. If these aren't 100% correct, you don't get the correct resonance value. If you do not get the correct resonance value, you cannot oscillate between here and here. 1/2. So if I did this, I'm telling you, here's the full value. I'm breaking it down in half in order to run those two right there in resonance. There's your break. That's why it's working, because it's resonating back and forth. Not really hard to understand, but it's the same process here as our UFO. We ionize the gas, we resonate it, we break the molecule chain down. Now we're able to manipulate it. We can add mass, we can remove mass based on what we want to do with the molecules, right? That seems pretty simple. It seems like basic understanding of what's really going on around us. Anti-gravity craft always have this. What is the other factor? It has to do with this. You see, every one of them has a static field, but it must also have this field right here. Okay? We need to create both of these in our craft. T.T. Brown does it in capacitor plates. He basically is building a giant electret. He builds giant capacitor plates that go in here, and oh, what's that funny? He has a very high K value. Oh, static electricity, not hard. He then runs a Tesla coil down the center, creating compression of the longitudinal, okay? Now, he could take this right here and create a directed compression of the longitudinal field. He has a static electricity out here. That's not difficult to understand. When you get into Otis T. Carr, what is he doing? Everybody has this thing right here. Okay. Neutron. It's creating frequency. That's what it's doing. He is right here taking his Tesla coil in a geometry pattern that goes like this. It creates a compression here at this zone. It is allowing the energy from the center plate here with the caps to push back into here. Now he's creating this. He has on the outside here, he now has directionality. This goes right here into his neutron, which is his frequency. That's Otis T. Carr. That's not hard. It's mostly dealing with frequency in your craft. Why? Because he's using resonance in order to break gravity. He understood that. His propulsion system is different than T.T. Brown's. Just understand that. It's different than one to the other. They're just using a different propulsion system, but their fact of how they broke gravity was exactly the same. Where does the ionization come from? Well, every time you get into this area right here, you're going to create ionization. Why? Anytime you have two wires coming apart here, you get a field inside here, right? This is your high voltage right here. You get your dielectric field going on here. What does that create? Ionization. You get it right here. Getting ionization. You're creating it again. You're getting things in there that every craft has to have in it. They just do it in a different way. You know, in the end, we're going to find out that gravity is much easier to break than it is to try to unlock physics to get there. Because you're not. Because you're giving values to things that aren't on the right side of the equation. You have the causes over here and the effects over here. You continuously put your gravity on this side when gravity belongs on this side. Because of that, physics is going to take forever to change in order to understand this. They'll probably never get there. Now, does that mean that you cannot change this equation in the future? If you did this equation and have this value, now you can take this equation here and now use it as your cause in gravity. Okay, here. Then you can equalize it to some other part that you're trying to work on, which is fine. But this always has to be put in as your base formula, because this right here is what's going on. You're not having gravity here. Gravity belongs in the effect category. Gravity is simple. You have gases You have voltage, you have magnetism, you have your water right here, you have your compression that's going on right here. We're all under compression, that's why everything falls. It's real simple here. When you release the compression on any object, it releases its hold on gravity. Therefore, gravity is an effect, it's not a cause. It builds out like a vacuum chamber. So all this in here, as you get to the levels here, this all in here is now just radiant. How do we see that in a vacuum chamber? Well, we see that purple glow just grow out. And that's it. And that's all we're looking at, is that little glow. That's your radiant field. It radiates out. That's all it is. Okay? But it's stuck between our anode, this is an anode and our cathode, right? We now have it between these two things. It's basically telling you we're inside of a vacuum chamber. I just didn't have to hook up any wires. Now I'm getting my radiant field. My gases build out up here. They're saying a continuous value. And now all I need to know is I can break this by creating a resonance that the actual craft resonates at. Now I can break gravity because I broke the compression on it. Just like my hand, I need to resonate it super fast like the Flash in order to pull it out of that field. Gravity is simply that. Now, are there different ways to create it? Oh God, yeah. God, it's so frustrating to watch people say this all the time. You have your Kashmir effect, right? You have your wavelengths that it can go in here. The wavelengths that it can't go in here is out here, right? Do I need plates to create the Kashmir effect? No, I don't. I need to understand compression. If I have a field here, and I can create those wavelengths in here, it comes out as static right here. I'm going to take my radiant field and I'm going to press it on both sides of my static. I now have the Kashmir effect. Do I need the plates? No, I don't need the plates. I need to understand field theory to understand this. I need to understand which field I'm in. Which ones work? We just went through it over the Earth and how things work there. I need to now take that and understand it here. Can we do this? Yeah, we do it all the time. This is how geometry coils are based. One layer above the next layer, above the next layer, above the next layer, above the next layer. Inside we get static electricity. You can call this, if you don't like that term, scalar. Maybe then you'd understand it a little better. I don't know. But you're just compressing this. On the top it's a leaky capacitor, on the bottom it is. It builds the field around it. That's a geometry coil understanding. That is the same thing. That's a Kashmir effect. I do not need the plates. At some point you'll realize this. I never needed the plates. I needed to understand fields and which one work inside the other. I needed to understand this. Once you understand this, you can create a field bubble. Without this understanding, this becomes useless. This is only going to give you so much of an effect with the plates because your materials are going to become your problem. So we get rid of this. Okay? When we simple look at fields, I need, in order to create a field bubble, I need my radiant field on the outside, I need my static field on this side, and I need ionization inside here. I also need counter rotation. Okay? Now, does that have to be in any kind of rotating with a motor? No. You simply need rotation. If you wind your coil this way, you get a rotative value. If I wind it this way, I get a rotative value. What's the difference? They're opposite of each other. They change the north and south on you as soon as you put them in different directions. That's why when I say 180 degrees out of phase, it means these two are built on top of each other. That's 180 degrees out of phase. That's my counter rotation in a field. I don't need plates to move it. I just need the energy itself to move in a certain direction. Now I have these, I have my ionization, I have my static, I have my radiant. You can call it scalar if you'd like to because it builds out that way. Whatever gets you to understand this process a little bit better, this field bubble is easy to create. The problem is you got to create the right resonant frequencies in order to do this. You need, and this is why Viemanas are built this way. You have these. There's two of them. The exact same size. Two pipes, right? Now I'm going to create two more. But these are different size. What happens? I got a resonant frequency between these two right here, right? We got our resonance. I now have a resonance frequency between these two right here. What do I have between all four of them? You now have a beat frequency that's going on in there. But it's all in the correct oscillation and timing as it all works out. Two resonant frequencies and a beat frequency. This is how the Viemana works. One day we'll get there, guys. One day we'll get there. We're all doing the same thing. We have a lock that's going on in resonance we have to break. Once you break that, when understanding what you're doing, two resonance frequencies that are going on. I see it in my craft. That center plate Tesla coil has a resonance. These two right here, when you lock them, they have a resonance between the two, right? This has a resonance by itself. Together they create a beat. I should have drawn this better. There's your gravity flyer right there. It's simple in the way that it works, complicated to do in life because not everything works the way you want it to. I have a Tesla coil connected here, it comes out in a field that goes on in here. Okay, we see this in the red light experiment. We know we have resonance in here with those two. We have resonance between this plate and this plate. We have a resonance value there. We have the little wire that comes on the top of the disc right here, creating our ionization. We now have, because we have ionization, we have this off of here. It comes off as a field. We now have our static value that goes on here. Because this field will actually build out in a small field here, but build out on the, because it's building out in the Planck scale, it now builds out in a bigger field here. Sorry, I should draw better. Now we have our radiant field out here. It is now compressing this field right here. It's fairly simple. It's how every anti-gravity craft works. Now, why don't I break this down into physics terms? Well, that's pretty simple. The physics are all over the place. If you have gravity as a cause, your formula never works out right. It always has to be an effect. Always. Until you change the second part of the formula where you can then input it as a cause. Because you've already done the first part that broken it down, told you it's an effect, and you know on a very primary level that's what it is. Then you can allocate it however you want, and I don't care. You can't get to the fundamental math formula that it breaks down properly in the end until you understand it as an effect, because it's always changing. The value on every planet changes. Why? Because your compression value changes, your gases change. You know what I mean? Your magnetic value changes, your voltage value changes, all of it changes, right? It means it changes the effect, it changes the gravity level. That's the fundamental understanding of it. I hope you understood some of this, because there's a lot of stuff out there, people claiming they know what's going on, but I'm going to tell you from building it. This is the way it's building out in the lab. 100% building out this way. So, sorry if you don't like it in your physics terms, and sorry if you don't like it in the way you understand things, or if something's wrong to you. Try to build it and find out. And let's see where you get to, because you're going to come up with the same understanding that I've got to. All of this is fundamental forces of nature, and they all work together in a continuous form. Again, 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 it tells you the same thing. Look up any UFO crafts and you're going to find out the same things are going on. Do we use ion wind? I'd like to say an expletive right here, but I won't. No. 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 Ionization of the area is yes. Ion wind is wrong. And you say, well, oh my God, they're the same thing. No, they're not. You're not using wind to propel it. You're using the ionization itself in order to prep the molecules to break. Have a great day.
The old man real. The old man real. The old man real. The old man builds. The old man builds is broken in the head. People not seeing reality has put them in the red. Where conscious and spirituality restricted from the norm and replaced with the ignorance of basic magnetic form. The geometry of God keeps running through his head. That's what makes old man builds broken in the head. The old man builds. The old man builds. Spheres of destiny are spinning in his mind, making him travel back and forth in time, battling the establishment for just a little recognition. Has him forcing the world to understand his premonition. That world will have all the technology in the end, even if it means his life will fail to extend. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds. Fears of destiny are spinning in his mind, making him travel back and forth in time, battling the establishment for just a little recognition. Has him forcing the world to understand his premonition. That world will have all the technology in the end, even if it means his life will fail to extend. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds. Of destiny are spinning in his mind, making him travel back and forth in time, battling the establishment for just a little recognition. Has him forcing the world to understand his premonition. That world will have all the technology in the end, even if it means his life will fail to extend. The old man builds.